What up guys, welcome back. Today we're going to get that motor pulled out of ESI. As you can see by what I'm showing you here, I've determined what I want to do, and that's pull all the parts off of the SI and get everything swapped over from my DX onto the SI. I'm starting a 4-day vacation today, so that should be more than enough time to get everything pulled out. The goal for day one is to get this engine pulled and also the ZC pulled, and then I'm going to try to remove all of the suspension, the front cross member, well, the innovative bar now, the rear subframe with my steering rack, and of course both the knuckles. And we're going to try to do the same on this one. I imagine getting both engines pulled usually takes me between an hour and a half to get an engine pulled out of a car now. So in the next couple of hours I should be able to get both of those pulled, and then I can just take my time, work on the suspension for the rest of the day. And then for day two, we're going to get the transmission pulled off the B20, and we're going to get a new transmission installed. This is one of those 88 to 91 JDM B16 LSD transmissions. I want to clean it though first. I'm going to probably pressure wash it, see what I can do to get as much junk off this transmission as possible. I don't want to put it on as dirty as it is. I just never had the chance to clean it. And we're also installing a new clutch to go with the transmission. I'm going to try out, this is the Action Clutch Stage 2. I've never used one before, was reading a lot of good things about them. So I figured I'd try one out. This one has a little bit more holding capacity for torque and horsepower, and that's the goal. I want to make a little bit more horsepower out of that B20 with a couple mods in the future. So I'm hoping this clutch should be perfect for my needs. And then on day 3 I'm going to work on the rear suspension. Now this one has rear disc brakes already, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably just going to drop the trailing arm. I'll swap over my pads and rotors from the 90 since I have the Hawk pads and rotors. Now I'm going to try knocking out I have a hard race rear trailing arm bushing in here. I think I'm going to use that on these trailing arms instead. These have the energy suspension. So I think on that 3rd day I should have more than enough time to get that finished. And 4th day is just for anything else that I may need to complete, or maybe even trying to get the engine put back into this car. And this is the engine that's going to go back into the 90 Civic once we're done getting that one put back together. D15B2 long block. It's a SI transmission, the PL3 9000. I checked the casing. And it also has the multi-point swap. That'll make it a lot easier because having to rewire it back to dual point, and then I don't even think I have a PM5 ECU any longer. It'll be a lot easier to get this back into the car, and depending on what I decide to do with it, I think I'm just going to go ahead and sell it. It'll make it a lot easier for me to make a lot of my money back when I sell the car. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by pulling the 2 motors first, and I'll catch up to you guys and give you an update in a little bit once we get those out.
I see your face, the way you smile.
All right.
I see your face.
Let's look at the engine bay. Pretty dirty in here. I would love to have the chance to repaint this area, but I don't think with the time frame that I'm trying to get this car ready for, it's something I'm going to do this year. If I do, it'll be at the end of this season, before next year. I'll go ahead and re-pull the motor and then just do my best to re-clean everything and repaint all of the inside of the engine bay. I'm going to clean it up with a pressure washer though, just to get some of this dirt out and get it a little bit more cleaner than what it is now. And before I got that motor pulled, it took me, I was so unmotivated to work on the car. But now after I have this one pulled, my motivation level just skyrocketed, and I'm going to get my ass to work on this one right now, try to get this one out in the next hour. It took me about an hour and a half to get this engine out. So I'll shoot for, well, I'm going to go eat first. I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. Grab some lunch, get out here, try to get this pulled, and then I can start working on swapping out my knuckles and traction bar and everything else first before I call it a day. All right. There it is, guys. All right, both motors are done. Now I'm gonna start working on suspension and little bits here and there, whatever I can get swapped out. One thing that always needs to be done with a B swap is hammering the frame rail. Kind of sucks that I have to do it, but it is necessary if you want to run a B series swap in these EF chassis. And you can see this one's perfectly flat, so we're just gonna hit it in this area, bend it in, same exact area that it was on my 90, so that way the alternator pulley clears. Now I'm gonna work on swapping out the innovative crossmember and also the rear subframe. Then after the subframes, I will do the knuckles because I want a place for the knuckles to rest. That way when I get the subframe in with the control arms, the knuckles could still rest on it, and then I can go ahead and bleed them because I'm also going to swap over my 9091 EX master cylinder. It's the 15th, 16th master cylinder, and this one is just still the 13th, 16th, the stock size. So I need to swap that over as well. And just as a gauge, in case you guys are curious, it is, what time is it? It's 2:37. I started on these swaps at about 10:30, took a half-hour break for eating lunch. So it took me about 4 hours to get both engines completely pulled. And I just started working on the front subframe. I got the one off the SI. Now I'm gonna move to the the traction bar on the DX and get that swapped over. And here's a little more progress. Now if you're wondering why I pulled it out, the whole rear subframe, because this is the one with the SI and it has all old parts on there. Whereas mine has the upgraded 23mm bar, the energy bushings already. I didn't have to remove my mount, it's already on there. I have a newer rack and pinion, and my tie rods are all brand new, they're just dirty. So that was my reasoning for doing that, and it wasn't that difficult at all. You just have to disconnect it at the joint, the steering column. It's a 10mm. I did both. So this one can come off also if I need to remove the lower portion. And then after you have that off, on the bottom, you have the two 17mm bolts. They stick up from the bottom. You remove all those and down she drops. And that's why I just left the knuckles hanging there. So once I get these subframes swapped, I'm gonna do the knuckles and work on all the brake lines next. Changing out these rear mounts while the subframe is in the car can be very difficult to get to this 14mm back here. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this now because I think it's pointless to reuse this mount. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. This mount is filled with that window polyurethane. Had it forever, I just keep spares around. So this will be a solid rear mount and we don't risk the chance of it blowing out for probably forever. It'll probably be perfectly fine as long as it's in the life of the car. And here's an update at the end of day one. Of course, all the crap everywhere. I got rear subframes changed, front cross member on. Just need to connect the steering rack to the actual steering column. But got my knuckles swapped over. Start putting the shocks on, but I can't put those together yet because once I get the motor in, I still need to put the axles. That's why they're just hanging there. And 4040 is done as well. Well, I'm sorry. 4040 I had already put on this car, so that's cool because I didn't have to change that. But I did get the master cylinder swapped out. I'm going to fill it tomorrow and bleed the front brakes, so those will be finished. But next we need to I'm going to work on this first thing in the morning. Get the transmission pulled, and I'm going to try cleaning that B16 transmission as good as possible. And a friend let me borrow his power washer. 1400 PSI, we'll see how well this thing works. I'm going to try to get it as good as clean as I could possibly get it. because this thing is ugly. It has a lot of caked up. I think the stuff on the outside, that'll probably come off easily. See how easily I wiped off that grease? I think with that pressure it'll clean off the housing. And then on the inside, I think I'm gonna try the oven cleaner where you spray it on there, the foaming one, and let it sit and eat it up a little bit. I'm not worried about the seals. I am replacing both the input and output shaft seal, and same with the shift lever seal. I'm changing those, so it doesn't matter if I get those a little bit damaged since we're putting brand new ones on. So we'll get back here out in the morning. We'll see what kind of progress we get finished for day 2.